Today, we're going to talk about Gen X and our relationship with work and money, which, spoiler alert, work and money for us is basically like one long, awkward blind date that never ends. If boomers got the dream of lifelong careers and pensions and loyalty, and millennials got the nightmare of student debt and unpaid internships, Gen X, well, we got caught in the middle. We were promised stability, but what we got instead was a cubicle farm, layoffs, and a lot of passive-aggressive emails or memos from middle management. So let's clock in, put on that ugly company polo, and talk about Gen X's negative look at work and careers. Gen X entered the workforce in the late 80s and early 90s, the era of beige carpeting, fax machines, and cubicles as far as the eye can see. You didn't work from home back then. Home was for collapsing in front of the TV, watching Friends or other reruns, while eating a microwave Salisbury steak. Companies sold the illusion of stability. Work hard, stay loyal, and you'll retire with a gold watch. Instead, in the late 80s and early 90s, mass layoffs were more normal than ever. Suddenly, job security was about as real as Milli Vanilli singing live. So Gen X learned early, companies don't love you back. They'll hand you a branded coffee mug and a pizza party, and then replace you with a cheaper version of yourself before the cheese even congeals. This shapes Gen X's entire attitude towards work and the world around us. Skepticism. Boomers still believed in hierarchies and chain of commands thinking. But Gen X, they saw bosses as slightly better dressed con artists. You smiled, you did your work, and secretly updated your resume in case HR decided your department was going to be restructuring. Gen X wasn't exactly rebellious, not like Gen Z, burn the system down activism. But they weren't buying into the whole company policies either. They quietly did their job, cracked a sarcastic joke about management, and went home. Think of it as professional detachment. They didn't quit in a dramatic fashion, they just stopped caring, which is honestly the most Gen X thing ever. Now let's compare. Millennials enter the workforce with degrees that cost more than some suburban houses, only to be greeted with the 2008 recession. Instead of gold watches, they got unpaid internships and advice like, just go start a YouTube channel, bro. Gen Z, meanwhile, came to the age during the pandemic. Work isn't about loyalty or security at all. It's about side hustles, gig apps, and selling random junk on Depop to make the rent. So while millennials are stuck chasing jobs that barely cover loan payments, and Gen Z is juggling DoorDash shifts with TikTok fame, Gen X is somewhere in the middle. We're rolling our eyes and muttering, yeah, welcome to the party, kids. Guess what? It's all a scam. Now let's talk about money, the thing everyone wants, but no one has. Gen X grew up just as credit cards were exploding in the 80s. Remember all those catalogs and pre-approved letters showing up in the mailbox? Gen X remembers, and many of them signed up before realizing that minimum payment is a financial death sentence. Then came recessions. The early 90s slump, the dot-com crash in 2000, the 2008 meltdown. Just as Gen X was supposed to be, hitting peak earning years, basically everything crashed. Gen X could not catch a financial break. The economy yelled, psych! Unlike millennials who turned money stress into memes, or Gen Z who invented crypto scams and, sold things online and everywhere else, Gen X we just shrugged. We tightened our belts. That's what we always said. We tightened our belts. We paid the bills, and we stocked up on Costco toilet paper. Resilient, practical, a little bitter. That's Gen X's economic plan in a nutshell. Here's the funny part though. Gen X, we hustled. We took side jobs. We freelanced, flipped cars, sold on eBay, all before the hustle culture was even a thing or a hashtag. But we didn't post about it. We just did it. See, Gen X doesn't need motivational Instagram quotes about grinding and working real hard. We were grinding before Instagram was a thing. Fueled by gas station coffee, occasional midlife crises. We didn't have the clout or the want to be online and tell everybody how great we were. Compare that to millennials, who glorify the startup hustle, and Gen Z, who monetize their hobbies on TikTok. Gen X never glamorized it. Work was just, well, work. A way to keep the lights on and maybe save enough money to buy a used Honda Civic that didn't smell like regret. Here's the overlooked truth. Gen X, we quietly reshaped the workplace. We were the first to demand a work-life balance, even if our bosses ignored it. We pushed for flexible hours, remote work, and casual Fridays. Basically, everything millennials and Gen Z are credited for asking for, Gen X was already muttering these things in the 90s. We just don't get credit because we weren't loud about it. We were too busy picking up our kids from soccer practice or rebooting the family computer after someone downloaded a virus from LimeWire. Gen X's legacy is subtle but important. We proved you could be skeptical of authority, survive constant layoffs, and still build a life. Maybe not a glamorous life, but one held together with duct tape, sarcasm, and a Costco membership. Gen X work story is about promises broken, expectations lowered, deep suspicion of anyone in a suit, but it also is about resilience, adapting to every curveball the economy threw. And at them or at anyone else, Gen X persevered without collapsing into a hashtag or into a think piece. We showed up every day. When I talked to somebody today, I talked to them about this, and I explained to this individual, this girl, that Gen X, people like me, you depend on us to show up every day. So when I worked where she's working, they never worried about me calling out sick. If I did, I was dying. They never worried about me being late. They always knew I was going to show up because my age group, that's what we did. We showed up. We still show up. My kids can always depend on me to show up because that's how I'm wired, right? Gen X is wired that way. We don't complain about how much money we're making. We don't complain about our work hours. We just work. We just get paid and we keep moving on. I have been able to build a good life for myself with my wife, mostly because I've worked hard. She's worked very hard, and I have sacrificed a lot physically and mentally to get here. I have tried to be there for my children to help them whenever I can, but we're not rich. We're not, making it rain every day. What we're doing is we're surviving. We have our Costco membership. We do what we can to buy things online for cheaper. We do shop around, and we only do trips or big expensive things if we can pay for it all at once. We are the type of people who have no credit card debt. We have decided that that is not a good idea. So we pay for everything up front. We've done that with cruises, with trips. We just pay for it up front. It takes time, it takes effort, but we've always done it that way, at least in the last 20 years. And that makes us less stressed. Now, I'm not working right now. I have worked in the past many, many years, but I'm not working right now. And what And a lot of people think, well, if you're not working, how are you able to afford things? Because my wife and I have dealt with budgeting, understanding what we need, what we have to have, what we want to have, and what we just really, really, really want to have. The last one doesn't happen on times like this. The second one happens if we can afford it, we have the money available right away, and it's something that will not hinder us from doing the first one, which is paying all of our bills and making sure the lights are on, there's a roof over our head, we have gas in the cars, and our dogs, our kids are taken care of, and our grandkids. But that's a lot of people in Gen X. We don't go for the biggest bells and whistles. We don't go for clout. We show up, we do our job, and then we go home. I like coming home at the end of a long day and sitting in my chair and just shutting off my brain. In today's world, that's harder to do than ever. But a lot of Gen Xers, we still enjoy it. And that's, I think, the big difference. I can come home, not know where my phone is, and just sit and watch the local news and not care about the world for 20 minutes. The younger generation struggles with that. The older generation struggles with that. This week, we still have to tackle, which will be tomorrow, the technology part and how technology has changed dramatically since 1965 to when Gen X started to today. In the last 60 years, technology has jumped dramatically. But Gen Xers, we've had to jump with it and we've had to adapt. And I think overall, we've done a really good job. But that's for tomorrow. If you like this video and you want to watch more, I'm going to put a link to the previous video introducing this whole plot system up in the corner of the screen. Also, like it if you want. Again, I just enjoy watching and reading people's comments. A lot of the comments are kind of funny because they're calling me old or they're telling me that, I don't really understand. You're right. Every Gen Xer doesn't understand others. We kind of grew up in a different world. Some of us grew up, in the Northeast, the South, the West, everything in between. And everywhere you grew up in Gen X was different because there was no social media to show you the differences between us. Now there is, and you can kind of see the difference between, Oklahoma and Maine. Back then, we didn't have that. We didn't have anything to show us what life was like in Oklahoma unless you watched a PBS documentary or read a book. Today, you can just watch a YouTube channel or a TikTok video. Thank you all for watching. Have a beautiful day.